I've been creating behind the scenes for so long, but today I finally decided to share this process with you on YouTube, starting with something that feels truly special, my first wedding dress. I started with a little brainstorming on Pinterest just to define the mood and direction. But the real process begins in CLO3D. I create a pattern myself digitally, build the dress in 3D and test how the fabric moves and falls. It really helps me understand the structure, proportions and volumes before touching any real material. I haven't actually tried using my digital patterns in real life yet, but for my first wedding dress I decided to challenge myself and start directly on the mannequin instead. Before I fully figure it out the final shape of the dress, I actually tested a few different skirts patterns I found on Pinterest. They didn't really turn out the way I imagined. The volume wasn't right, the silhouette felt off, and it just wasn't the one. But I decided to share this part too because I think it's important to show you the whole process. It doesn't always work perfectly from the first try, especially when you are experimenting. Design is a lot of trial and errors, and sometimes the mistakes are what guide you to the right direction. For the lace, I wanted the simulation to be as accurate as possible, so I actually took a photo of the lace I was using in real life. Then I brought the image into Photoshop and created a normal map so CLO3D could render the texture properly. Okay, now let's get to work. This is what my workspace looks like right now, and this is the mannequin I'll be using it. The only problem is that I can't really stick pins into it, so I'll probably need to get a new one soon. For now, I'm going to start by wrapping the mannequin in plastic wrap. After that, I'll cover it with paper tape so I can draw directly on it later. This way, I'll be able to sketch the shape of the dress straight onto the form using a marker and start building the structure from there. Now I'm starting to shape the corset directly on the mannequin. I'm defining the exact lines I want, the neckline, the waist, the structure, basically building the silhouette of the bodies. Once I'm happy with the shape, I'm starting drawing all the seam lines and panel divisions. Then I number every single piece so I know exactly what to cut and how everything will come together later. It might look a little chaotic right now, but this step is so important. It's what turns the idea into something technical and wearable. Just trust the process. Let's transfer everything into proper pattern paper. I prefer working on a separate sheet so the pencil and marker lines don't stain the actual fabric later. Also, pattern paper is thin enough to easily pin onto the material without any extra bulk. I carefully trace every piece, keeping all the markings, seam lines and numbers so nothing gets confusing when I start cutting. For this step, I'm using my pattern tracing kit from Lidl. It's actually super practical and makes the whole process much easier. Before cutting into the final fabric, I made a mock-up using a different material to test the fit and proportion. And honestly, it wasn't perfect. I realized the corset was too short, so I had to adjust it and add more length. I also tested different bra cups to see what works best in terms of support and shape. Now we are moving on the final fabric. Bridal taffeta. This is the moment when everything starts to feel real. I carefully cut each piece, making sure to follow the grain and keep all the markings in place. And actually, when I cut the pieces, I'm technically making two corsets, one from the outer taffeta and one from the lining, so every panel is cut twice. On the base layer, I apply interfacing to give the corset more structure and rigidity. Now we move on to sewing. Once the panels are assembled, it's time to add the boning. I shape each bone carefully, slightly melting and curving it to follow natural lines of the corset and the body. After shaping them, I attach the boning onto the lining layer. I prefer placing them there so the structure is secure and clean on the inside, while the outer fabric stays smooth and elegant. This step completely transforms the corset. It goes from soft fabric to the structured sculpted piece. you can really start to see the strength and shape coming together. Choosing the embroidery was honestly one of the hardest decisions in this whole process. There were so many beautiful options and I kept changing my mind, but in the end I chose the one that felt the most delicate and romantic, and I'm really happy with it. I carefully cut around the floral shapes, following the lines of each flower so it would blend naturally into the corset. In the meantime, I also work on the skirt. I cut the panels, assembled them, and made sure the volume and flow matched the corset perfect. After sewing the main seams, I overlocked all of the raw edges to keep everything clean. I also made a temporary embroidered label for the dress, just until I order my official one. After that, I start finishing the corset, closing the lining, securing the edges, and refining all the small details inside. This is the part where everything needs to look just as clean on the inside as it does on the outside. It's those final touches that really makes it feel complete. When I started testing the corset, I noticed it looked slightly uneven. I made a few adjustments, tried to rebalance the structure and refine the lines. But to be honest, I didn't manage to make it absolutely perfect, and I think that's okay. This is my first wedding dress, and perfection doesn't always happen on the first try. What matters is learning from it, understanding what I would improve next time, and continuing to grow. Then I hand sewed the embroidery onto the upper part of the bodice, placing each piece intentionally to enhance the shape. I also added a few small accessories that looks like tiny tears, subtle but they catch the light. At the end, I went to my mother's house to try it and get her honest opinion. She's always been my biggest supporter and also my biggest critic, in the best way, of course. I knew she would tell me exactly what she thinks. So that, I went to see my boyfriend, my other bigger supporter, and he helped me take some photos of the dress. His mother also joined us and helped with the decoration and the lighting, making everything look even more beautiful. It was such a special moment seeing the dress come to life, not just in my studio but surrounded by the people who support me the most. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this journey with me, especially my very first video and my very first wedding dress. If you like to see more of my creation and follow along as I grow as a designer, make sure to subscribe and stay with me for what's coming next. I'll also be listening this dress on Etsy shop. I'll leave the link below. Selling it would really honestly help me create a budget for the future dress and keep investing in my new project. Every bit of your support truly motivates me to continue on this path and keep creating. See you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.